All right, everybody, welcome in. So we're going to get started here, continuing with things. So a couple things that I want to mention. So we've got this project binomial distributions that caused people some confusion. The due date ended up getting kind of moved to a weird time. I don't know. I think it's because of the time change. I think when the time changed, it adjusted the date for that day by an hour. I'm not 100% sure. It doesn't seem to have affected the other due dates, so I don't know if I made a mistake when I set it up or what. But the time confused some people because it was due at 1 in the morning, where most people are used to, when they see the date, it's due at 11:59 p.m., which means people thought they had the next day to turn it in, and they didn't. So what happened is I extended that date. So if you tried to turn this in, and I had about, I don't know, 8 people email me, which is great. Whenever there's a problem like that, email me, and then I'll try to fix it. Okay, that's the right thing to do. I think I responded to all the people who emailed it, plus I left an announcement in the course. So basically making sure that, there's nothing sketchy going on with the turn in here, right? I don't want students to feel like they got cheated because there was a weird time that it was due. So you can still turn this in. Okay, so I think more people probably have now. Still not a ton of turnout, but some of you did. You have till today, so turn it in. Okay, try to get that turned in today so that you can get the points. Really, that's like the easiest points to get on the project. Your final project that you turn in is graded harder than these. So these where you can, obviously you have to do the right stuff to get credit, but you have to do it anyways. So you might as well do it now and post it and get these easy 10 points, and that kind of pads your project score a little bit. So if you end up getting a lower score than you would want on the actual final presentation, you have these early points to kind of raise it up a little bit. It brings up that average a little bit, because usually if it looks like you went in and did an honest attempt, I give you the 10 points. Even if it's not like, your work isn't stellar, I give it to you because you're just learning these things, right? And then if it doesn't improve, for some of you, if the work's still kind of not great by the time you turn in the project, then I'm a little harsher about the grading. But here, when you've just learned it and you don't understand all the connections yet, I'm being a little easier about the grading, because you need a little longer to figure things out. Okay, so make sure you get that turned in. That's tonight. That should be tonight at 11:59. That should be due. Don't miss out on those points. Okay, you definitely want those. And in this case, I know some of you don't have, you might not be blown away by the results of your two-person question, or if you didn't ask one, go to someone else's and ask their two-person question. Grab one from the survey. Remember, there's no ownership of these questions. You can use whatever questions you want. And just try to make a statement about it, right? It doesn't have to be like earth-shattering results. Try to make some kind of a statement that you can say something, semi-interesting about, and that you can just basically show that you understand what this chapter is about and what's going on there. Okay, if you do that, I go in here, I see what you did, I say, okay, it looks like the person must have done the homework, looks like they watched the videos, looks like they know what's going on, then and you've done the tools, then you should be fine. You'll get those points. Okay, so that's where we're at with that. Make sure you get that taken care of. It looks to me like all future of the Canvas discussions are due at the right time, so just be careful about that, or I'll be careful. I don't know why that one time got messed up. Okay, one thing I want to make sure we all understand, because there always ends up being some confusion when this happens. So if we go to the Ventura College webpage and I hit academic calendar, I scroll down to the instructional calendar for this year, and we're where? What month are we in? November. Today's November 9th. Then you notice a couple things. Oops, it's not letting me show that. Let me move this window. November 9th, that's today. Look, the 11th is a holiday. I believe it's Veterans Day, right? So Veterans Day is Thursday, so we don't have class. Also, when Thanksgiving is, we don't have class there. So it may seem like, man, the final's out there, but it's still a ways away. But we don't meet that many more times, because we've got today. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 more times we meet, and then you turn in your final exam. So that's not a ton, right? That's coming pretty soon. So I'm moving ahead in the material a little bit because I want to make sure that we cover the most important topics and the ones that are most misunderstood. So remember what this is here. The lectures or the class information that I'm giving you during class is not meant to be the whole class. A lot of the sort of the calculations and figuring out what buttons to push, that should be coming from the lessons that are inside Canvas. Inside Canvas, the assessments and the lessons. Really, the lessons you should be learning and the assessments you're putting it to work. You're learning a lot of the details and the how-to, but what I would say is you're not really getting, they do a pretty good job here, but there really isn't enough time spent to get the overview to really understand what's going on with confidence intervals and hypothesis tests, which is something that if someone told you need to take this class, being your future major at the university that you're going to go to, and they said you need to take statistics, they absolutely want you to have an understanding of what a confidence interval is and what a hypothesis test is. Okay, we've learned a lot of everyday stuff that you're going to use on a probability and the basics of statistical thinking. These can help you on a daily basis when you listen to politicians, when you listen to the news, and and there's when you're reading on the internet, and in all three of those situations, you have people trying to give real information, you have people trying to give made-up information. Having that basic skill of some basic statistics can help you figure out when someone is just trying to basically to confuse you or just try to get you to to get your vote or to get your dollar or whatever it is they're trying to do. You can be a little bit more skeptical and go, I think maybe this person's not on the level. So that's helpful. The hypothesis tests and confidence intervals that will take up most of the rest of the course are largely, they're just two big tools for statistics to get used on a regular basis. So if you're ever actually reading statistics for your job or for future research or something like that, you're going to have to know what those things are, or you're just not going to be able to read any kind of real statistics that you need. Like I'm talking about like research or job. Sometimes you see confidence intervals on the news and stuff like that, but usually that's a little, stuff that gets on TV is kind of watered down so that every single individual out there can understand what's taking place. So they usually aren't going to do something as high level as a confidence interval or a hypothesis test, because then they'd have to explain it. And when you explain math, people just change the channel. So they, it's like a lot of TV gets kind of dumbed down, right? So that it's not, so that it's sort of what they call like lowest common denominator. Like a lot of entertainment is lowest common denominator. So it's, applies to as many people as possible. So, but if you are someday going to have to read something that actually legitimately has statistics in it, not just the basics, mean, median, stuff like that, but someone is actually making some kind of case statistically, they will either have a confidence interval in their work that you have to read and understand, or they're going to have a hypothesis test, sometimes both. It's a little bit controversial, or where for a couple of reasons, there's some controversies that have gone on with statistics in the way that research has been done in this country. There are some journals that no longer accept hypothesis tests. They say really the real statistical measurement should be confidence intervals. So if you're going to, say, submit work, if you're in graduate school or you get a PhD or whatever, and you're creating new work and you try to publish it, certain journals are going to want you to do it with confidence intervals. And it doesn't have to be, you don't have to be a statistics major in order to use statistics in your research. Lots of different places in their research or their job have to use statistics even though they're not publishing something. I'm just using that as an example because that's the ones, it's the most transparent. So it's the stuff that ends up in the community. And then there are some disciplines that were just misusing statistics, right? There was I remember listening to an article or a piece on NPR where they were talking about there were some psychology journals that were, there was some controversy going on because it turns out the way that people were doing in psychology, and not everyone, but the way some people were using using their stats for psychology was in a way that really wasn't very valid. So remember we talked before at the beginning of the class about you're trying to be honest. Most people, when you're doing statistics, you probably have some kind of bias about what you want to happen or what would be good for you to happen, right? If it's good for your company, then that means your company's going to make more money. But you should be trying to, or your research, right? You've been moving your research in one direction. You don't want to find results that blow it all up, and then you gotta start over from scratch again. So sometimes there is a bias in people to have certain outcomes come out a certain way. And if you're doing ethical statistics, then you try to avoid those kind of things. Well, there's a couple places where some people doing psychology research, the way they were deciding their sample size is they would just start dealing with patients one by one, and they would keep doing that until their numbers came out right. That's totally unethical, because if you do anything long enough, you're going to get the result you want. Right? You have to plan it out ahead of time and say, this is the number, this is our sample size, this is what it's going to be. And if you change that, you should have a good reason, and you should justify it. You can't just say, man, these results aren't coming out. I'm just going to keep trying it on different people until that mean moves where I want it to be or whatever. That's unethical statistics. And I think some people might do that just because they don't understand statistics. And I think also some people do it because it's in their best interest to do it. So, there's different types of controversies that come up around hypothesis tests. Confidence intervals are pretty bulletproof. No one's arguing that confidence intervals shouldn't be used. There are some places where they don't want you using hypothesis tests, but hypothesis tests are still used widely all over the place. So don't be afraid of those. And we'll get to those. Those kind of come after the confidence interval. So we kind of started to talk about the confidence interval a little bit last time, but it's really, since most of you have just finished your, not that long ago, your first real exposure to probability, it's still probably sinking in, right? When someone learns probability, they don't usually just immediately get it and go, yeah, I totally understand how to do all problems in probability. It takes a little while to put those counting procedures together and to think about probability. Is this with replacement? Is it without replacement? Is this experimental probability or classical probability? You have all these things you got to ask yourself, and it takes a little while to get used to. But the confidence interval and the hypothesis test rely heavily on probability. So if you don't really understand probability, you're really going to miss some of the subtleties of the confidence interval and the hypothesis test. And this is a thing that's important to understand, right? I see this in the projects that get turned in. As I see people who they know what buttons to push in StatCrunch, but they don't really get what they're talking about, right? It's obvious. And this is one of the reasons I like the video over turning in a problem on a test, because people can memorize how to get the right value on a test, but they have no idea what that value means, right? And they memorize their conclusion for a hypothesis test, but they have no idea what it means. This is very apparent. I'm just kind of giving you a heads up. This becomes very apparent in your videos. If you put up a hypothesis test, all I have to do is listen to you talk, and it's very clear the people who actually understand hypothesis tests versus the people who don't, right? So take that time to make sure you understand confidence intervals and hypothesis tests, so that when you give your presentation, I watch it and go, this person knows what they're talking about, versus I don't think this person really understands what's going on here. So watch out for that. I do want to show you, where is it? Oh, so it's become, in talking to a few students, it seems that some of you have still not found all the tools available to you inside of your homework. So I just want to show those to you. So when you're doing a homework, a problem, you've got some options at the bottom. You've got the help me solve this, view an example, and get more help. So there's a couple things going on here that are really helpful. And I know some of you know all about these. Some of you are still sort of discovering them. So help me solve this is kind of going to give you steps to go through. And, it's giving you some hints to work your way through it. If you view an example, what they're doing is they take a slightly different problem with different, let's see, I think usually has different stuff, but this one looks like it's maybe a little different. Anyways, you get a similar problem, and then you can continue through it, and you'll see them working it out, right? You'll see them working out the numbers, and you can see how they're doing these things. They're going to tell you the different steps that are being taken. The other thing that's helpful, this Get More Help, if you click this, you can either just open StatCrunch and then use it for however you want. This just opens a StatCrunch window, but it's blank, right? This isn't, remember, there's the other problems where you can open the data set from that problem in StatCrunch, but this is just opening StatCrunch. Okay, see how it's blank here? There's nothing populated in there. So you can do both. On the problems where they have a data set that you need to look at, you can open that data set in StatCrunch, or you can just open a blank StatCrunch and do whatever you need to do, the project or whatever, right? But there's also this. If you go to here, there's the Tech Help. So you click Tech Help, and what it does is it tells you how to use the technology that you need. So notice it starts off with TI-84. If we were in the classroom, you all would have checked out a TI-84, and the TI-84 is not a great tool for doing stats, but it does do stats, and it's helpful in the classroom, right? I can't have all of you have a computer when we're in the classroom, but I can because we actually, our department gives them out a free rental for the semester. We can give you a free TI-84. You have to return it at the end of the semester. They put a hold on your records, but otherwise, you get to do it right on there. So the TI-84 is a nice tool for learning. No one actually does statistics on a TI-84, but it's helpful in the classroom when I'm explaining something and you follow along on the TI-84 and you get the same numbers as me. You go, oh, I get what's going on, right? But then look, it also gives you information about StatCrunch. So if you're ever wondering, like, I don't know how to do this on StatCrunch, they want me to do a certain thing, and I don't know how to do that thing, then go open the StatCrunch help, and it's going to show you how to do it. Now, I've mentioned before, it's also very easy to just go into YouTube and say, you know, StatCrunch, linear regression, maybe the letter R, something like that, like just whatever. You know how it is when you're trying to Google something and you play around with the search term till you get the exact results that you want. You do the same thing here. You can put in something. There'll be videos showing you exactly what to do. But if you're fairly familiar with it, you might not need that. Just go read this. Let me widen this so I can. Oops, why is it not? Let me grab the edge here. Anyways, so it says, okay, finding the area under a normal curve. Here's what you're gonna do. So it walks you through how to do it in StatCrunch. So I'm reminding you of this because I'm seeing that some students kind of never really found this stuff at the bottom. But also, the things you do in StatCrunch are not going to be quite so clear-cut, like quite so, 2 clicks and you're done. You're going to have to start making decisions about, with your confidence intervals and your hypothesis tests, you have to make decisions about how things are going to be calculated. Sorry, I got those hiccups coming up. Okay, so keep that in mind. That's going to be really helpful going forward, I think, for some of you. So if you know about it, don't forget about it. Like, feel free to use it because most of you probably will find some spots in the next couple of weeks where you get confused about stuff. So use those if you can. Right, that's been a number of I would say a fair percentage of the questions I've been getting in office hours are a lot of times about how to use StatCrunch and not even necessarily about the statistics, which is fine. Like it's totally legitimate to come to me with either one of those questions. Either I don't understand the statistics, okay, let's figure it out together, or I'll explain it, or I get the statistics, but I don't understand. I'm getting weird numbers in StatCrunch that don't match what I'm supposed to put in here. And usually it's, there's a couple little subtleties where you're just doing a little bit of the wrong thing and it comes out wrong. One of the big ones that I'm seeing is when problems talk about population versus sample, and you got that different standard deviation, right? So it's little things like that where little mistakes can mess you up. But if you go in here and you get your tech help for your stat crunch, boom, that's it might not fix your problem every time, but it might help move you along so you don't have to wait 4 days until my office hours start up again on Monday to get help. But by all means, come to me with those questions if you need that help. Okay, come talk to me if you need to. Okay. Let's see. So did I get everything I wanted to say? Those were some things at the beginning. Do be aware, like I said, I know it seems like a long way off, but we're now getting that point where you should kind of start thinking about the video presentation that you're going to make, because it's, you've got roughly a month, but that month's going to move fast between the fact that we don't have class this Thursday, right? And then there's Thanksgiving. And most people take time off at Thanksgiving. You probably have some homework to do for your different classes, but most people want, you probably have some plans for Thanksgiving. You might spend the day with family or whatever. So basically the bottom line is that I think some students don't always expect, because they're like, well, we got a month left. That's plenty of time. That month moves fast. I actually kind of don't like Thanksgiving being where it is, because if anything, it's more of a disruption to the semester. I'd rather just work through and let us out a week earlier in December or whatever, but that's not how Thanksgiving works. But it is disruptive because many of your attentions will turn to other things besides school for a couple of days, while you pay attention to family a little more than usual. Unfortunately, maybe some of you have jobs where, people go shop on Black Friday, and so you're going to have to work even more than usual, and sort of a bunch of nonsense. I think Black Friday is kind of a bunch of nonsense, and now they have pre-Black Friday nonsense. So some of you may be extra busy working during that week, even though Black Friday was originally a pre-sale before the Christmas season. Now they have pre-sales before Black Friday, and the whole thing just gets kind of silly at some point. Also, considering, just keep in mind, if you shop on Thanksgiving, you're sort of making those people work, so they can't be home with their families. But, everyone makes their own choices. But anyways, I'm getting sidetracked. The bottom line is most of you are going to be fairly busy that week, so you may not be able to keep quite as much up with your statistics as you usually do. So the bottom line of that is, in the next month, it's going to move quickly. So just be mentally prepared for getting stuff, because I cannot accept projects late. It's literally in the let's look at it since we're kind of getting close to it. So if you're on the main Ventura College webpage and you go up to academic calendar, and then you just scroll down to final exam schedule, then you've got the schedule for the final exam. So we are what? We are a Tuesday, Thursday, 8 a.m. class, right? Tuesday, Thursday, today's Tuesday, right? Tuesday, Thursday, 8 a.m. So it looks like that time is right here. So you can see when you're, oops, I'm off the screen a little bit. Let's move this in. So all of you can find this. You can just go there and print this. It's published right on the Ventura College webpage. It's literally 2 clicks from the front page. You go up to where it says academic schedule, and then you click final exam schedule. So Tuesday, Thursday at 8 a.m. That means your final is due during this class. Now, you don't take a test in this class. A bunch of us moved, at least in certain classes, to being project-based for online, because what we found was, since we don't have any kind of proctoring available, the school did not pay for proctoring. Basically, there was just rampant cheating. Everyone was cheating. Not everyone, but the majority of people were cheating, which was actually giving them an advantage over the people who weren't cheating. So the people who weren't cheating were getting like B's and C's and a few A's, but then the people who were cheating were all just getting like 100%, right? So it's really a system that we could not stand by and watch. So a few of us went project-based. Well, the final exam schedule was designed originally for you to take a test. But since we're project-based, then the school has decided that the project is basically your final exam. It's just not a test that you sit down and you complete in 2 hours. So I am obligated. I have to make that project due at this time. There's literally a school policy that says I have to make a major thing due at the time of final exam so that we can justify the final exam. So your project will be due between 8 and 10 on the 14th. I cannot accept a project after that. You can turn your project in early. In fact, I probably will give about a 10% bonus for people who turned it in at least a few days early. I'll give you details on that towards the end of the semester. But I know there's always a few people who wait. Like, I get these emails where someone's like, it's 12:05 and they're like, "Oh, I was trying to turn in the assignment and I was 10 seconds too late." Don't be 10 seconds too late, right? Because it even says here on the school policy, right here, student request for early or late examinations. Students requesting early or late exams may obtain a petition from the instructor or division office. Approved petitions are to be filed in the office of the division dean prior to the exam date. No exceptions. That's not my policy. That's Ventura College policy. I don't get to decide this policy. What that means is a couple of things. One is you need the dean's signature. If I decide to sign the petition for you, because I think you have a legitimate reason, you still have to convince the dean to sign it. Also, it has to be turned in before the final exam, right? So the times when this has happened, I think I've had it happen twice, and it was because I don't remember if it was births both times, but it was two women were in the hospital in different years, but they were literally in the hospital during the final exam. So they could not physically show up for the final exam. And, you kind of, it's a little hard to make someone stick to a time frame if they're in the hospital. They got other things going on, right? So in those two cases, that's a no-brainer. I signed the petition. The dean signed the petition. Those people then had some time to come back and take the final exam and pass the course. So, but if it's because you just waited too long, you're probably not getting a signature from me and probably not getting it from the dean either. So I just want to make this clear to everyone. The very latest you can possibly turn this exam in is 10 a.m. on 12/14. So don't be trying to turn it in at 9:59. It's 50% of your grade, okay? As you've seen down here, the school policy means I can't just be a nice guy and go, fine, it's 10:05, you can turn it in. I literally will be breaking this policy. So what I probably will do is what I usually do. Let's go back to that schedule. What I usually do, this purple is finals week. So what I probably will do is anyone that turns it in by the 8th, I will give like a 10% bonus to your project. So then what I do is I watch your project that you turned in. I watch your video. I grade it. And then at the end I go, oh, this person turned it in early plus 10%, right? So you can turn things in early. You just can't turn them late. And what I found is if I motivate people to turn them in early, less people turn it in late. And then we have less of these interactions where like, it's like, I'm sorry you turned it in 5 minutes too late, but the rules are the rules. We get to avoid more of that. So if you shoot for having it due on the 8th and you turn it in on the 8th, you'll get a little bit of a bonus to your grade, which, Now, don't turn it in early if it's not good, right? Don't turn in a bad project early because you want that extra 10%, because if it's bad, it's probably going to hurt you more than 10%. But if you're someone who's, you're on top of this, you've got everything done, you've got your videos made, then, turn it in on the 8th, get an extra 10%, and you're good to go. Okay, that's likely how that's going to work. Otherwise, where's the link? Otherwise, you can turn it in on the 14th. That gives you a few more days to work on it. You just don't get that 10% bonus, okay? But I want to make this as clear as I can. The latest I'm allowed to take by school policy to take your exam is 10 a.m. or your project is 10 a.m. on the 14th. If I take it after that, what happens is we open ourselves up to claims that we treat students on like not in the same way. So, someone then could come back and say, well, I had to turn mine in on time, but he let her turn it in late. What's that about? And, that's a reasonable argument to make. So we avoid all that by saying, here's the due date. Get it in early if you can. Don't get it in late. Okay. So I know I'm going on about this, but you got to understand it's literally a thing we deal with every single time. And so I just want to make sure everyone knows that's when it's due. That's the latest you're getting it turned in. Okay. And then just kind of a reminder, it looks like we're barely even getting to like the actual material today, but it's important information that you need to know. So if it's turned in any day before the 14th, we get the extra 10%. Yeah. Right. So students asking if you'll be able to turn it in. Let's see how I have it set. I haven't even updated that yet because we're out there, but it's currently sent to December 7th. Let's change that right now while I'm looking at it. Let's edit this. Let's go down to, let's make this December 8th and December 8th. Oh, actually, you will have until December 14th at 10 a.m., won't you? That's actually when this should be. So 10 a.m. And we'll make this one match. December 14th at 10 a.m. Right? I think that's what it said, right? December 14th at 10 a.m. is the last minute to turn that in. So yes. So what'll happen is on the 8th, because it's actually going to help me as well. So not only does it help less students turn it in late, I'm going to have an absolute ton of these videos to grade this semester. So it means I can also start grading them a few days earlier so that I can get grades in as soon as I can. There's a lot of pressure for us to get grades in as soon as we possibly can. Well, I have days and I have probably 4 or 5 days worth of videos to watch. So if I can start that sooner, and that means I can get those grades in, because people need to send transcripts to universities and they need financial aid, all sorts of reasons why the grades need to get in fast. So what'll happen is it codes it when you turn it in. It gives a little timestamp and tells me when you turned it in. So if you turn it in on December 8th or earlier, then you will get that 10% bonus. But again, don't turn it in before it's good. Like, the number one thing is to turn it in when it's good. But if you're happy with it, and you can turn it in early and get that extra 10%, that's great, because it helps me get some of them graded earlier, and it helps you because you have a little grade boost to it. And then also, if you've turned it in early, then guess what you're not doing? You're not turning it in late, right? So that sort of helps everybody along the way. Okay, good questions. So I guess each time we meet, I'm going to start telling you more about the project. Feel free to bring questions about the project so I can answer those. Also, you're welcome to come to my office hours and ask me stuff. So basically, it's a minimum 10-minute video. If your video is not 10 minutes, that's a major red flag that you probably don't have anywhere near the amount of material that you need. It means you're probably going through and saying, here's my questions, here's the mean and median, here's a histogram, here's a confidence interval, here's a hypothesis test. Okay, I'm done. If that's all you did, you're going to end up with a pretty low grade, because that's all the descriptive statistics, a little bit of inferential, but it means you probably didn't talk very much about each one. You just sort of read me. Sometimes what happens is students just read me the output of StatCrunch, but there's no explaining. There's nothing to me that makes you understand that you know what's going on. It just shows me that you were able to get something done in StatCrunch. That's what I talk about, the whole memorizing what buttons to push. I can get a p-value out. I can run a hypothesis test in StatCrunch. Can you explain to me what the hypothesis test means? No, I can't do that. Then you didn't really learn anything, right? So make sure you're throwing those conclusions in there. Just make me understand that you know what you're talking about. That's all I'm looking for in these. and you've got a lot of topics to cover. You're going to introduce your topic. You're going to talk about your questions. And sure, you'll have summaries in there, means, medians, modes, histograms, dot plots, whatever you think is appropriate for visualizations. I would encourage you to have multiple visualizations. Don't just, remember, don't treat it as a checklist. Okay, check, I put one histogram in there. Check, I put one regression in there. Like, don't think of it that way. Remember, it's about, you want to show me those things, but you also want to make a convincing case for whatever it is that you're looking at. So numerous visuals, maybe even for the same question. You might do a histogram and something else, right? Some other visual. You might give me a couple visuals. You got to show something the whole time. You might as well have some interesting visuals there. Remember, your visual should be well labeled. That's a red flag. If I see a visual and it's not even labeled with a title, an x-axis label, a y-axis label with units in there, so it's clear to me what exactly you're graphing, that's going to be points taken off. So make sure, play around, make 5, 10 histograms, find the one that's best, label it, and then save it, and you're ready to go for your video. I don't care about the production quality of your video. I have people who make the charts by hand, and then they just hold a camera up and videotape it and talk about it while they videotape it. As long as, it's stable and it's not moving around and shaky so I can't see what's going on and making me car sick, that's fine, right? So if you have some stable way of doing that, maybe have a book kind of holding your phone in place, or some kind of thing where you're not like moving your hand around and talking. That's a totally legitimate way to do it, because most of you have access to, a Samsung or an iPhone that is going to have a good enough video on it. If you're going to make your visuals by hand, do a good job. Okay? I know some people like color ink is crazy expensive. Makes me mad every time I have to print in color. So I get some people maybe you don't have a color printer at home or whatever. So you can make your visuals by hand, but they need to look really good. They'll look fantastic if you save them from StatCrunch. But if you're going to make them by hand, just do a good job. If they look bad, it's going to look bad, basically, is the bottom line. So if you think about it, 10 minutes is almost nothing. I mean, even if you talked for 1 minute about each of the major topics in this course, you'd go over 10 minutes, right? So most of the projects that get A's are at least 14 minutes, like 14 to 16, 18 minutes around in there is where I start seeing people that are talking enough that I go, yes, you understand what's going on. But when you do your project, don't think of it as a time. Again, it's not a checklist. Okay, I hit 14 minutes, I'm done. Because I've seen 20-minute videos that were horrendous, and I have seen 12-minute videos where people did a great job, right? It's all over the place. Last semester, I had a student, she turned in, it was like a 44-minute video. She got an A because it was fantastic. She basically took her questions and broke down every single thing we did over the semester, made great conclusions, great visuals. She absolutely got an A in the class because it was clear to me she understood every aspect of this class inside and out. Great. Here's an A. Good job. I'm not saying that you should make a 40-minute video or even that it's a good idea, but if what I'm saying is if you have stuff to talk about that you want me to know, like you really think you understand confidence intervals, then give me enough in your presentation for me to know that you understand confidence intervals, right? So, and that should take a couple of minutes because you're going to talk about your confidence interval. You should, why wouldn't you show me a scatter plot with the regression line on it while you're talking about correlation, and then give me your conclusion, right? That's going to take 2 minutes right there. So, make sure you're hitting all major topics and that you're showing me what you did, giving me your conclusions. If there's not a confidence interval in your whole project, I'm going to have to assume that you don't understand confidence intervals, right? So make sure you give me all that kind of stuff. If you're someone who's great with video editing and you have all those tools, great. There are free tools out there that are screen capture softwares. There's like Screencastify, and then there's one like Screencast-O-Matic or something like that. I forget which one is free, but there's one out there that you can download free screen capture video software. So you can move stuff on your screen. It just records a video, right? I mean, you can do that with OBS, the software that I use for these streams, the YouTube stream. That software is called OBS, the letters OBS. you can record stuff with, you can record your screen with that and make a video. OBS is free. There is a little bit of a learning curve because it's really meant for streaming, although you can make videos with it. So there's different free tools available to you to use. You don't have to buy anything for this class. I don't want you to have to go out and buy something. So as long as you have access to a phone or something, but it should be a video, right? I have people who turn in actual PowerPoints. Don't turn in a PowerPoint because the project is to make a video, right? Now, I think the reason some people get confused is people ask me, can I have a PowerPoint in my video? Yeah, if you want to make slides and then your video is where you go through each slide and you have your visuals inside a slide in PowerPoint and then you have like some other stuff written in there and it helps you give your presentation, that's fine. But I don't want your PowerPoint. I want your video of you using the PowerPoint. So if you turn in a PowerPoint to me, it gets 0 points. If you turn in a video to me with a PowerPoint inside the video, then I'm happy to watch it and see, and that's fine. That's a perfectly legitimate way of doing the project. And PowerPoint's just kind of a generic word now. Obviously that means Google Sheets or Google Slides or what, any of those kinds of things that would be applicable. So you can do it that way. So you have lots of options. So if you're confused or you're not sure how to do this, now is the time to start coming to me in office hours so that I can help you and give you some hints on what you might do. Like how you might structure things. I have students that come in and say, here's what, is this histogram okay? Or, whatever it is, if you need some guidance. But don't wait till the last minute because we all get super busy at the end of the semester. And so I'm always going to have office hours, but my office hours tend to get more people coming to them at the end. And then since we're all busy at the end, I'm not going to be able to make up other times as much. I mean, I try to be accommodating, but we all have lots of things due at the end of the semester. I may have, I have other classes and other things I need to work on. So those of you who sort of have the time to work ahead, you might do that and then come to my office hours and ask me questions. I'll do everything I can to help you towards the end of the semester as well. Just realize, just as your time and availability gets short at the end of the semester, so does mine, right? You always have those posted office hours, but I may not be as available. Like basically right now, I've had a number of times I've had students that couldn't make it to my office hours. So I'm like, okay, can you meet at this time? Okay. And then we do that. I won't be able to do that as much in those final days of the semester because we're all buried in work at that point. So, so that's kind of where we're going with things. So I didn't even get to confidence intervals or hypothesis testing today. But I would encourage you to try to work through those because if you try to do hypothesis tests at the last minute, then you're going to have very little time to put them in your project too and get that turned in. So, yeah. Oh, and then what will happen is you'll submit your project in here. Really the thing that is best for me is if you can post it on YouTube and send me a link and then I can watch it. That way, sometimes people send me file formats that I can't read. And if I can't read the file format, then that's not good for you. So the best thing is if you happen to have a YouTube account, you can put it on there as your project. After I've watched it and given you your grade and you have your final grade for the class, you're welcome to turn your video to private or whatever if you don't want anyone to see it. Chances are no one's ever going to see it anyways, but unless some of you have, YouTube channels that you do stuff on, but you can even just make a separate YouTube channel for your schoolwork or something so that you're, if you have followers because you have a certain hobby or something, those people aren't going to be seeing your final exam project. But that's kind of what I prefer. If you can send a YouTube link or Vimeo, if some of you are, have Vimeo or something, send that link. That's really the easiest way to do it. Just make sure I can actually view it and everything. That's another thing. If you turn it in early and I notice, oh, this isn't a format that's unreadable, then if I catch it ahead of time, I can tell you and you can turn it back in. That happened in a couple of the projects along the way where someone posted something that I couldn't open. Like, okay, I need you to do this, and then I can still get you credit. If you turn in something at 11:59 or at 9:59 on that morning, but I can't read it, then there's no time for, corrections and stuff. So try to, if you can, put it in one of those formats where I can, YouTube's the best, right? But there's other formats that are available, but if it definitely help me if you can post it to YouTube, because then there's no there's no weirdness with like, oh, you gave me a file that's corrupted, or you gave me some file type that I've never even heard of before, and even VLC can't read it. These kinds of things happen, and then it ends poorly for the student. So those are things to keep in mind. And by all means, if you're nervous about any of this stuff or confused, come talk to me. I would rather give you the information ahead of time so that you can make a good video, make a good project here, rather than you being totally stressed out in the final hours and then creating a product that isn't very good because you didn't know how to do it right. Okay. Okay, so we didn't even get to confidence intervals or hypothesis tests, but I'm going to have to start mixing in more of this stuff about the project, since most of you are going to, in the near future, start putting those projects together. I'll also talk about confidence intervals and hypothesis tests, so we'll continue that discussion next time. I think we were right. Let's see, we left off here last time, so we'll just pick up from there next time. But there's not a ton to talk about in hypothesis tests, with confidence intervals, and then we'll get into hypothesis tests, which can get a little bit weird. But so we'll go through and do that. All right. So start thinking to yourself. Go, I have some chops with video editing. I think I could do something here. All right. Then you do it that way. Or if you're like, I have no way of making videos, try to just get your hands on an iPhone or something like that. I'm not going to mark you down. As long as I can hear what's going on and I can see your visuals, I'm not going to mark you down because it doesn't look like, like a trailer for the next Marvel movie or something like that, right? I don't care about that. I'm trying to grade you on your knowledge, but it has to be clear enough that I can see what's going on, right? And that I can follow along. Are there any questions from anybody? Doesn't look like it. Okay, I ended up talking about the project the whole day. That was not my intent, but it's probably good because you're all going to need to know about the project going forward. So I do have office hours starting now, so anyone who wants to come speak to me is welcome to do so. Otherwise, what day is today? Tuesday? So, I won't see you in a couple days because it's Veterans Day. So I'll see you in a week. Okay, see how it's flying by already? We got like 4 weeks left, and I'm not going to see you for another week. So that's where we're at with stuff. Okay, thanks everybody. We'll see you later.